Well, hi everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this Saturday, and you're wondering maybe why is he sitting here on a Saturday in a blue shirt and a red and blue tie in the studio? Well, I'm working today. I was off Wednesday when I went to do my library appearance at the Bayonne Library in Bayonne, New Jersey. Which, by the way, there is a video up on the library of my YouTube channel. You can check it out. I did try to live stream there with moderate success. We were having signal issues, but some of it managed to make it. So if you'd like to take a look at that, just go and look at under the instructional videos playlist on my YouTube channel, Joe Chaffee, and you will find it there. So anyhow, it is cold out there today, at least certainly out my way. We've got the wind at play, and we've had wind sustained at times running 25 to 30 miles an hour. Temperatures have been in the low 40s, in some areas in the upper 30s this afternoon from New Jersey to southern New England, and there were snow showers around even down my way. So those lake effect snow showers, which were pretty busy today in upstate New York and continue to be to some degree as we move into the evening hours, they're showing up still on the radar and on the satellite from yesterday's storm system, which is now in eastern Canada, and of course the upper air trough that is swinging eastward. You're getting these strong surface winds all over the warm waters, relatively warm waters of the Great Lakes. And I don't know if you've ever been up that way. When they get these setups here where they're dealing with strong winds of 30, 40 miles an hour or more, which happens quite a bit in that area, though the lake waters really go crazy. I mean, it looks almost, it looks like almost like the ocean when there's a hurricane offshore with the swells that come in at the beaches. It gets crazy. So I was trying to dig around to see if I could find some working webcams, but unfortunately I was not. There were a couple there with some still shots, but very, very impressive. Anybody that lives up in that part of upstate New York will tell you. And I've been up there, not when it's been stormy and when it's been calm, and I can see how it happens. And one of these days I'm going to get up there for some lake effect. By the way, throughout much of the northern parts of the United States, we've got a very wintry looking weather map, disturbance moving through the northern plains, producing some snows into the eastern Dakotas and over into parts of Minnesota, and also in and around the Great Lakes. We're getting some lake effect. The frontal boundary from yesterday is pretty clear. It is running from off the east coast, just east of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and then running south to northern Florida. And then you start to see an increase in moisture back through the western Gulf and into Texas and in Mexico. This is going to be the next wave of low pressure, the next round of action that we're going to have to deal with here come Monday night and Tuesday. But before we get there, we've got to get through tonight, Sunday, and Monday. And as we bring up the watches and warnings map for tonight, we've got a lot of freeze warnings up across the south, northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, eastern Tennessee, up into most of South and North Carolina. Bear in mind, the freeze warnings only go up once. Once an area hits 32 degrees and the growing season then is stopped. So they don't keep putting up freeze warnings every time the temperature goes up goes below 32. Just the first time ending the growing season. And by the way, those warnings also extended to parts of a little bit further north into eastern Virginia. We also have winter storm watches up for a small portion of eastern New Mexico and West Texas, northwest Texas there, with some advisories up through the Rockies. And of course, with all the wildfires going on in California, with the trough in the east and the upper air ridge in the west, it is bone dry, and we've got this horrible wildfire situation going on in Southern California. So you can see red flag warnings up pretty much up and down the entire state from San Diego all the way up to the Oregon border. So they need a pattern change to come quick to bring in some rain, and it's not going to happen in a big hurry. Let's put it that way. With what's going on this evening, and by the way, as always, any radars that you see, of course, they're dated. So if you're watching this later, you can always check your latest radar and your latest forecast for your area by going to weather.gov. By the way, if you look right beneath here, I'm not going to make it full screen, but you usually start to see this more and more in the winter months. No thunderstorm areas forecast for today. So throughout the entire nation, we seem to be having a thunderstorm-free day. So why don't we bring up the current temperature map? And what I've done is I've overlaid the satellite and the radar on it. It's hard to see the satellite portion of it. I got to play around with the colors here a bit, but you certainly could see the radar echoes, and then the temperatures, of course, are the 5 o'clock readings, which are all in the 30s in the Hudson Valley, down toward New York City, and points south. I mean, this is cold air for this time of year. At 5 o'clock in the evening on November 10th, we're way below where we should be, and we could easily be 15 or 20 degrees higher than this. Look at the temperatures in western PA and all through Ohio in the 20s to near 30. And we've had a busy lake effect day across upstate New York with some, looks like a pretty solid band of snow here that's running from just off the southeast shores of Lake Ontario on eastward from there. And it looks like the radar's refreshing. You got some scattered cells going down into the Catskills. They were more numerous a couple of hours ago. And then a peppering of lake effect snows going on through southwestern New York and into northwestern PA and northeastern Ohio. So a pretty busy day there. And we also have, we had some lake effect snows. We actually still have some going on in parts of Michigan, both the lower peninsula and the upper peninsula of Michigan. And you've got temperatures there down in the middle 20s and even some upper teens. Showing up into parts of Wisconsin. And now we get into that snow that I was showing you in the northern plains, some light snows that are coming in through Minnesota and on up into the Dakotas, where temperatures were down in the teens and single digits this morning, and they're only back in the upper teens and lower 20s. So no doubt that this is cold air. And we'll go further south. Again, these are 5 p.m. temperatures, so they are starting to already drop across the Carolinas, where we're seeing readings down into the upper 40s to around 50. And those 50-degree readings go all the way down into the Florida Panhandle, down to New Orleans. The only spot that really is very warm is Central and South Florida, where we have temperatures in the low 80s. But you go north in Florida up toward Jacksonville and toward Tallahassee and through the Panhandle, and you're looking at 60s and even some upper 50s for 5 p.m. temperatures in the western part of the Florida Panhandle. So this shot of cold air has found its way pretty far south. And with respect to the radar views, just the radar alone, you can see snow here up in upstate New York. We've got a little bit of snow going on in parts of eastern Maine, some scattering of the activity around the Great Lakes, and then, of course, the area up into the northern plains. Otherwise, when we look at this elsewhere, some showers there in southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana. It's quiet, clear and quiet throughout much of the southeast and down to Florida. And, of course, out in the west, there isn't a drop to be found anywhere in the west from Seattle all the way down to San Diego. So first things first, I want to start off with what's going to be happening as we go through the rest of the weekend and into early next week. Now, the wind has been a problem. You've got a deep low sitting just east of New Brunswick, moving northeastward on the upper right. High pressure, 1030 high in West Virginia. Pretty large change of pressure, over 40 millibars over a relatively short distance. So the gradient has been tight and the winds have been gusty, and those winds will start to diminish some tonight, but there still will be enough of a breeze where temperatures are going to be pretty uniform. So we're looking at mid-20s to low 30s over a good portion of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, and the low 30s will be mainly confined to the warmest of urban locations. I think there's a pretty good shot that the last spots that have avoided hitting the 32-degree mark will do so. Tonight, Scott Briller pointing out that last year, the first 32-degree temperature in New York City was on November 10th. And this year, it's going to, if it winds up getting to 32 tomorrow morning, it'll be off by just a day. And that high is going to start to move east. We have no issues during the day tomorrow or even into Monday. But you can already see low pressure that's coming out of the southwest. And we've got the winter storm warning up for parts of eastern New Mexico and West Texas, with the model generating some snow there. The area of snow is going to diminish as we go through time, as this low swings eastward, because of the limited supply of cold air, at least as the storm moves through. Then we're going to see more cold air coming in for later Tuesday night, but most of that is going to be coming into the eastern part of the United States this time around and not dropping all the way south. At least the bulk of it seems to want to stay more in the north because of the way the jet stream is structured, and I'll show you that in a second. So here comes your next low. We've got no blocking to speak of. There's nothing to hold the cold air in. So this is a rain event all the way through. I really don't know why there was so much excitement earlier this week with regards to, well, I do know why. I mean, the snow weenies are just chomping at the bit for that first snow of the season. And so they're looking for any clue that the model gives. Just the fact that the model prints something on a map doesn't make it right. And, the setup here is just not favorable for it. And not only do you have climatology strongly working against you for snow at the coast this time of year, but you just didn't have the kind of teleconnections that you would need as far as the blocking is concerned. You need something if it's going to happen this time of year, you got to have something that's holding in the cold air. Otherwise, if the pattern is too progressive and everything is moving from west to east, cold shots will be just that, cold shots. And this rain comes in Monday night, spreading up the coast. Looks like it could be another 1 to 2 inch rain producer, but it moves pretty quickly. I mean, the bulk of the rain is almost done in New York City by 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning if the NAM is right, and then that low moves away, and now we're into the Wednesday, early morning hours on Wednesday, 1 a.m., as we bring in the cold shot that comes in behind this weather system. I think it's a pretty straightforward situation at this point. When we look at the upper air, we were debating, and I kind of bet the wrong way, where the models were stretching the bottom of that trough, and that seems to be the case. And the other thing that the GFS was very guilty of, and also the European early on was guilty of, was the fact that it just over-amplified this northern feature, bringing it too far south so that it had all the cold air really just kind of driving in down into all the way down into Florida with this next shot. And one of the things that's happening now that the models didn't do a good job with, and this is something we should pay attention to, there's an upper high, there's a ridge off the southeast coast of the United States, east of the Bahamas, south of Bermuda, and I'm thinking that ridge, you can see it here from just south of Bermuda extending toward the Bahamas, that ridge is being a little bit more important. And it's preventing this trough from digging southward. So the overall outcome from this, again, I think is also going to be fairly straightforward with respect to snows from this system. We're talking well inland, north and west, well confined to the interior parts of upstate New York, western PA, and on up into the interior northern New England. And there could be some decent snowfall amounts out of this from northeastern New York on up through northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and northern Maine, especially in northern Maine. But we don't quite have that blocky scenario that you would like. And by the way, also, you can see the NAM is bullish with its snows that it's forecasting through much of northern Texas and back out through southeastern Kansas. There's one stat I want to check on, and that's Amarillo, because I seem to think in the back of my mind that they've gone a long, long time without seeing accumulating snow there. So I don't know how far back it goes, but I seem to have it in my head that they have not gotten much of any snow in the last couple of winters. I could be wrong, but I want to double check that. And I can remember winters where they used to get, at least one sizable snowstorm every season. At least going back when I'm thinking back when I was younger in the 80s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But that cycle's kind of flipped a little bit. That was a 30-year period where the West did extremely well with snow, and that has kind of flipped now since 2000, and it's been more the Northeast that has done better, relatively speaking. But anyhow, again, I don't think this is going to be any, certainly no problems for us here. Even after this system goes by, the cold air is just going to, the precip's going to be long gone before the cold air really sweeps back in, and that will be that. So going forward, we can jump to the new GFS. I just switched to the NAM. The NAM, by the way, is not that much different, although the NAM does have this stripe of snow that it carries through the areas from through Missouri and then on up into parts of Ohio, the GFS has that, whereas the NAM has far less. It has some, but it does have less, although it does give a little bit of a bonus in northeastern Arkansas there. This is all hinging on how much holds on with regards to the northern and western edge of this, where we do have some cold air that's coming down and getting pinned in there. You can see on the by Tuesday morning, there's cold air that's pouring into the western lakes and into the upper Midwest, and some of it's bleeding down. That trough is getting stretched out, so there's cold air that's also getting stretched out and pinned back westward into Texas. I know Danny's been asking about Dallas with some snow, and I'm thinking it's not going to happen. It'll be a cold rain there. Once it gets cold enough, the rain will just the precip just shuts off. And that northern stripe there on the northern and western shield would argue for some snow in southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, Ohio, into northwest PA, and then you start to get into the northeast, and there's going to be some elevation issues with this. Notice that the model does develop a reasonable little low here that goes by, so the rainfall amounts are going to be another round of decent, let's call it decent rain. The GFS is a little further south with these max amounts. The NAM is a little further north, excuse me, and so is the European. But there easily should be a 1 to 2 inch rainfall with maybe some local amounts higher than that. The GFS, by the way, throughout all of this has been notoriously too far south and east. So it's been kind of shifting closer to the coast, and then it just shifted eastward. One run goes a little east, one run goes a little west. I think you could wind up seeing that heavy rain area pinned a little bit further to the north and west than what's being shown at the moment. Now, before we go forward to the longer range, because I think there's a couple of things I want to touch on. First off, if you look here in the lower right, the models have been developing a tropical system in the not so long range. In fact, the Hurricane Center has this as a 40% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone of some kind. It would seem that with everything going on in the East Coast, that it will just get picked up and taken out to the Northeast. If you look off the East Coast on the new model run, there is a low that's east of the Virginia coast, so that low just kind of swallows it up as it forces it to turn to the Northeast. So I want to go over how we get to the end of next week and take a look at a few changes that have occurred in the upper air. Here is your trough for that's going through today that lifts out, and now we have the next trough that goes in for Tuesday and into Wednesday, and notice that northern trough is so much different than what the models were showing just a couple of days ago. It just never really, the bottom part of the trough winds up shearing out. I picked wrong. I clearly picked wrong. I thought that would not be the case, or if it was, it would have been a lot weaker. But a significant portion of the bottom of that trough is going to get left behind as we move into the middle part of next week. Then that trough lifts out, and you still got that energy in that southern stream that has to be resolved. And if you look upstream here, coming into Lake Winnipeg and into the northern plains, we have another short wave that is moving in. And that picks up that southern stream system and lifts it up to the northeast. Now, I want to go to I'm going to go to the paint box, because I want to show you, with regards to the long range, what's happening, because the models have been a little volatile. They've been kind of changing their tune from run to run, and the runs I'm going to show you now, just to show you how radical this change was from last night to today, and then I will show you the teleconnections to show you how it all measures out. So this is for next Saturday, okay? The GFS for next Saturday. This was the run from last night, the 0Z run from last night. So this is the run that starts running at 10:30 p.m. On Friday night, and this is valid for Saturday morning. And you've got a trough that has moved on through in the east, but you also have a trough coming into the west at this point. And what that is doing is that it's crashing the ridge that is up into the Pacific Northwest. It's weakening that ridge, and it's starting to flatten the flow out across the United States, okay? You still have a bit of a flow in Canada, but it's not extending very far to the south, maybe into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. And the thing is, once this trough lifts out, you would see a significant warm-up, because you have a trough then coming into the west, and you have a ridge, the beginnings of a ridge here, that would eventually find its way to the east. That at least was the plan. However, the best laid plans of mice and men and weather models, because now, and this started at 6Z last night, this continued on today's 12Z run. This is for the same time frame, folks, okay? The exact same time frame. Take a look again. Here it is on the run from last night, and here it is on the run today. Same time frame. That's for Saturday morning at 7 a.m. A totally different scenario here shaping up. You've got this full latitude trough. You've got a trough in the west, off the west coast. So the model is saying now, no, that trough is not going to be digging into the west coast. It's going to be offshore, and that keeps this ridge in the west intact for much longer. So this is a totally different view. Now you've got a connection of cold air from Canada driving southward into the Great Lakes and down into the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, and a south-southwest flow along the eastern seaboard. This is eastern seaboard. This is an incredibly amplified look and totally different from what the model was perceiving from last night. And by the way, the European and the GFS, are almost on the exact same page in their model runs today. So there's a fairly high degree of confidence that this new solution is the one to stick with. And let's go back, by the way, let me go back to last night. So this is last night's look at next Saturday morning, okay? Now I want to jump to that same model run. We're going to go to what is now day 10. So you can see what happens between those two periods. So we're going to go from almost day 8, okay, to just past day 10. So the model last night was saying we're going to go from this look ridge off the trough off the east coast, ridge starting to build in the east, trough digging into the west, and then 3 or 4 days later, as we move into the next period, the final outcome of this is a big ridge, relatively big ridge in the east, a trough not quite in the middle, then another ridge in the west, and then another trough that follows down from the Gulf of Alaska on southward, and then another ridge that follows that right along 160 degrees west. So that was, again, what last night's model did. And today's model, when we go out to day 10, you're going to see the difference from the new outcome. And it's so much different, okay? I mean, really, it's literally night and day. And I'm not, of course, the confidence level goes down as we go forward, but this is such a different look, and I'm curious as to how it gets to this. It's got a much, you've got all these cutoffs running around for one thing. Instead of just having like ridge trough, you've got this that forms. You've got a cutoff that forms down in Southern California. You've got this shortwave trough coming in. No real big ridge in the east, by the way. I hope you noticed that. There's a little bit of a blocking high that's developing just to the east of Iceland, and it might be a bit of an east-based block here. I can't really see I haven't looked beyond that area, but again, a totally different scenario here that is shaped up on the model. So this is a great example, and we have so many of these along the way, where you get fixated on one particular model run, and you think that's what's going to be, and maybe not. I tend to think right now, looking at what's going on, and I think Dr. Judah Cohen today in one of his tweets, as Scott, you alerted me to it, there's a lot going on in the upper atmosphere, way up, and I think there's a high degree of uncertainty going forward as to how this is going to play out. But if we wind up warming up during Thanksgiving week here in the eastern part of the states, I would put that warming up in quotes. It would certainly mean that temperatures probably might get back to normal, but I mean, in terms of a blowtorch, I'm thinking no. And here's another run now we're seeing, again, for later next week, that deep trough into the eastern part of the United States. We don't have it out far enough yet to see what it does beyond that, but this confirms the last 3 model runs now that have this idea of a deep trough in the east, ridge in the west, and a trough off the west coast, as opposed to a trough inland of the west coast and a ridge beginning to build in the eastern United States. So when it comes to the implications of this on the surface, that's not a half bad looking trough, by the way. So we'll back up for this is for next weekend. You're going to resolve that southern energy, so it looks like it wants to bring up, the European did this, by the way, as well. It brings up a coastal low that it moves into the Gulf of Maine. It has the tropical system separate. Both models keep the tropical system separate, the GFS being a little more dynamic with it. One of the issues is the fact that there will be, with the depth of that trough, will be cold air that's going to try to come in as the low goes by. But because of the time of year, I just think it's way too much to ask to have the cold air sweeping in while the low is still nearby. So this I'm guessing is going to be pretty much a rain event here, and then you get another shot of cold air during next Saturday and into Sunday. It's actually not a half bad. It's a rather, I wouldn't say, I don't know if impressive might be a bit strong, but that's a pretty decent shot of cold air that comes in behind that trough. So again, the state of the atmosphere right now, if I were, I'll say this, if you're if you're a winter weather lover or a snow lover in general, I would be encouraged by what you're seeing here with regards to the overall weather pattern, because of the fact that it seems to want to keep going to the trough in the east idea, even when you get a model run or two that winds up trying to put the trough out in the west. The models seem to snap right back to the idea of the trough more in the east. So I would take that as an encouraging sign if I were a winter snow lover. I'm not saying that I am, by the way, but just putting it out there. Okay. So let's. I'm going to come over to the board here. Just I think we're going to continue to have a lot of fun watching all of this evolve. I saw snow showers, by the way, on the radar. I did not actually physically see them because I'm kind of stuck here inside this building. Pat Wright, welcome. You're new to the board. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope you hit the subscribe button, which we all know is free, by the way. I live on the central Oregon coast. We've had no storms this year, yet strange, should have had 1 or 3 by now. Yeah, well, you've had this big upper high in the west dominating since October 15th. So it's been almost a full month now that you've been basically cut off from storms coming in from off the west coast. And again, even last night, the models were lending some hope for you that would change. But it seems at least today, the last 3 GFS model runs, and I can't see the in-between European runs, which are now available, but the GFS, the last 3 model runs have kind of discounted that idea. Oh, hey, Raymond, I was wondering about you. Haven't seen you on for a long time. Hope everything is well for you up in upstate New York. Alcina, nice to see you back again. Do you think we'll moderate during the Thanksgiving week? I would say we probably would. I think we're going to moderate some, but we're not going to go. I don't think it's going to be a blowtorch. I don't think that I don't think we're going to see the ridge coming back into the east in a big way. It's going to be on the flat side. And by the way, that would not be unusual, given that we've been in this pattern since the middle part of October. For it to take a break for a little bit would not be an unusual thing. And I certainly would not. I'm waiting. Winter hasn't even started, by the way. And on my Facebook page, I got this one guy. I won't say his name in case he's watching this live stream, but he'll know I'm talking about him. He's already so negative, talking about the fact that the moisture part of this pattern, as soon as we get into December and the cold air really gets here, the moisture part of this pattern is going to completely shut down. And he's just he thinks it's supposed to snow. As I said, I kind of described the snow lovers. They think it's supposed to snow every day from November to May, and it just doesn't work that way. But honestly, I honestly think, from what I'm looking at and kind of the way my head is reading the weather models today, if you're a winter weather lover or snow lover, and you're in the eastern part of the United States, I think you should be actually somewhat encouraged by the pattern and not discouraged by it, because it's the middle of November, and as Scott Briller pointed out the other day, we think we've had, in New York City has only seen 6 snow events in the month of November that have produced an inch of snow in the last 60 or so years. So basically, you're talking about a 1 in 10 year event. But Pat Wright, we'll see if you get it. Maybe while this pattern relaxes, you could start getting some weather systems to come in your way. But I don't see anything that says, big storms coming into the west coast of the U.S. And this would be a time where a trough in the west would come in handy because of what's going on in California, particularly in Southern California, with the wildfires. Okay, I'm just trying to see what's going on. By the way, Anthony Orr, my wonderful statistician, is also one of the moderators on this channel. So everybody here, there's somebody here that looks like they're not behaving themselves. Ken Stutt 2468. No political stuff here, please. This is a weather channel. There are channels where you can go to you do your political stuff, but just don't do it here. We seem to be able to chase out the flat earthers, the harpists, and the rest of them. So if we could chase out the political guys and gals, that would work for me quite well. So Johnny Quest is a moderator too. So everybody be on your toes, okay, and behave. So let's see. Just trying to run through all your commentary here, making sure I get all your questions. Can that tropical system be a threat? Asks Andrew Del Virginia. I don't think so, because of the fact that because of where the trough is. Granted, you're going to get a very deep trough with a southwest flow, but that trough is going to extend pretty far out off the east coast. So even if you do get a tropical system to form, I would imagine that you would see it turn to the northeast out before it gets to 70 west, and then carry on northeast from there. Either that, or it winds up, if it doesn't develop into something identifiable as a tropical cyclone, or even if it does, if it stays relatively weak, it may just wind up getting absorbed by the non-tropical coastal low that is developing, the frontal system that's developing along the east coast for next Friday night into Saturday. Okay, Iron Mine 10 library events coming up. I do have a couple. No, actually, I only have one on the table now for the rest of the year. That's going to be on Long Island in Babylon at the Babylon Library, and that is on Wednesday, December 12th at 7 o'clock. So we got a long ways to go before then. We're a little over a month away. So I will, of course, be reminding everybody about that. Okay, just you know what, Bobby Livingston, absolutely. The wind, really, this was a wind chill kind of day, because the temperature's in the low 40s and a 20 to 25 mile an hour wind. It felt like it was down in the upper 20s during this afternoon. Just running back to, do I think 5,000 subscribers with no videos asked, do I think that this week's cold air will cool down the Great Lakes enough to significantly decrease the lake effect? No. No, not at all. The water's got a long way to go before it gets cold enough and before the lakes freeze. And this is nothing. Okay, there's going to be lake effect for quite a while with what's happening. It just doesn't shut off on the first cold air mass. Just trying to check out here. Average lows in the 30s in November, especially as we get later in the month. The average 32 is in Central Park. Anthony, I'm going to guess that the first 32 in Central Park is probably around this time. That's a guess on my part. But last year it did take it. First time this season was on this date, and in 2016 it took until December 9th. And actually I think December 9th, or right around December 9th or 10th, is about the average for the first 1 inch of snow in New York City. And would like Robert Hurley, a warm weekend would not be a bad thing. Hey, Chris Alley's on tonight. Always good to see you. Yeah, Phil, I'm sorry, but it's deep into the video. So if you watch it on the replay, what's up? Is that my Phil? Is that my is that the Buzzman? Phil, is that you? Oh, for next Friday. Okay, now I got it. It's all coming together. You got to remember, Phil, I'm a couple of years older than you. I'm almost 60. Mind fades. Yeah, there might be some rain issues at the end of the week. Okay, but text me and we'll talk about it. Oh, it's not the Buzzman. Okay, so it's not my fishing buddy. It's another Phil. All right. Anyway, either way, next Friday another low, maybe along the coast, but it's toward the end. It's toward the latter part of the of the video and not the beginning. Not that I wouldn't encourage you to watch the whole thing, by the way, because you should. You're still hot over there in South Florida, Robert Sabatino. I know the 80s down in South Florida the cold air didn't quite make it all the way down on this shot, and it's probably not going to make it down on the next one either. So, okay, so look, let's leave it at that for this Saturday night. I'm going to go out and grab myself a little bit of dinner, so I suggest everybody do the same, as we are now at 5:40 p.m. Eastern Time. So always remember, whatever you've seen as far as satellites and radars, it's all dated. So if you've got weather issues for later on tonight and you got to see where it's raining and snowing, be sure to go to weather.gov to get your latest information from there. I also want to at least do one shameless self-promotion tonight for my my platform on Patreon, and I'm going to put the link up on the chat board for those of you who are interested. The Patreon platform gives you all weather with other weather people. You'll be on. You'll be able to have conversation and chat back and forth, and I put posts up all day long. And of course, you get my website posts on there as well without any ads. I've been doing exclusive videos just for Patreon members, and for Patreon members who are on Android devices, on Android mobile devices, we are leaking out our new weather app for the area from New Jersey to New York City, Long Island, Southern Connecticut, and the Hudson Valley. So if you're on an Android device and you're on Patreon, you can download the app and the new app and install it, and I'd be very, very welcomed to your opinions and any suggestions that you might have. So as far as that is concerned, it's a subscription site. It starts at $2 a month, and it's a great way to support what I'm doing, and I'm continuing to expand. There'll be more things that we'll be doing going forward. Casey, it does look, I'm sorry, I did just see your question just now with regards to Arkansas. It does look northwest Arkansas as far as snow is concerned. Now, I'm going to just kind of give it, I don't know your geography, the climate in your area all that well, since I don't live there. I mean, it does look like it should be cold enough for at least some snow in the northwestern part of the state come Monday into Monday afternoon and evening. The models, the GFS model, just in terms of precip, it's basically anywhere from a couple of tenths to up to a half an inch. So, I think certainly several inches of snow could certainly accumulate up in the northwestern part of the state for Monday. I want to give it another look though tomorrow, to see if the models are showing if the cold air is a little bit more important or perhaps a little bit less important. But just based on the melted precip, the GFS does have a couple of inches, 2, 3. Some, that shading in the purple is more like 4-inch amounts there scattered around into the northwestern part of your state. And I think you stand a fair chance of seeing this. Again, this would be for Monday into Monday night. But tune in tomorrow and we'll go through it again. With regards to what's happening. All right, so that's it. Thanks, Howard Vanderhoff, for the endorsement on the app. I really appreciate it. Thanks for helping me out today with that. Charlie Baker, you enjoy your evening as well. Scott Briller, thank you for the kind words. And goodbye to Daniel, who apparently was on, and now he's gone. All right, folks, have a great evening, okay? And we'll be back tomorrow at, I don't know what time tomorrow. We'll see. It's a Sunday. I might want to do a little fishing if I get an opportunity. So have a great evening, and we'll see you at some point tomorrow.